Operating a vessel efficiently is not just about navigation and the smooth running of its machinery and equipment. Efficiency is also about being smart and tidy, and that comes from good housekeeping. Being shipshape. We're all familiar with the engine room, and just as on deck, in the galley, or even in your cabin, there's a lot of housekeeping to do, and it's more than just keeping the machinery running. The chief engineer is the officer with responsibility for the engine room, and he knows the value of good housekeeping. It's not just a matter of health and safety, but also a matter of common sense. And the chief and the engineering team need to be constantly vigilant, checking everything, however small. Starting with the workshop, tools and materials need to be safely secured at all times. All machinery must have the necessary guards in place. Loose clothing can easily be caught. If machinery is being cleaned or maintained, be sure that everything is put back in place after the work has been completed. A regular check of tools and equipment is essential. Report and replace anything which is faulty or damaged. In an emergency, you must know that an adjustable spanner is going to adjust. And it's not just the tools that need storing correctly. Spare parts must be labelled, in good condition and readily to hand. There's little point in having first-class workshops if you can't do the work for lack of spares. Ensuring that there is an adequate supply of commonly used items, such as seals, gaskets and filters, should always be part of engine room good housekeeping. Equally as important is the maintenance of your personal protection equipment, PPE. It gets a lot of use, so check regularly that an adequate supply is always available and replace any item if faulty or out of date. If ear defenders are working effectively, they also block out verbal warnings. So visual devices need to be fitted and working, flashing lights, rotating lights, etc. These all need to be checked as part of your good housekeeping. Engine rooms comprise several levels and can be dangerous places, so always follow the company procedures for safe working practice when undertaking routine maintenance or housekeeping jobs. Don't use pockets. Always place the tools in a suitable container for carrying and handling. Organising yourself when you're working is essential in the marine environment. Don't scatter tools around when you're working. Keep them safely to hand, within reach, or there's a high risk this can happen.
What are you doing?
There were no consequences that time, but it could easily have resulted in injury, and at sea you can be far removed from outside medical assistance. With the emphasis on self-help, have you checked the first aid kit recently? Does it contain everything as listed, and has anything exceeded its use-by date? This is something that can easily be overlooked, and just as at home, it should be regularly checked. And accidents are out there at all times waiting for a victim. Often it's necessary to get below the floor plates to carry out maintenance or cleaning work. It's all too easy to forget that there are other people around, so always protect the area. Always tape off access and post warning signs. Safe disposal of oily rags and waste is essential. Always have in place secure bins at recognised points on all levels of the engine room, and these need to be regularly emptied, with the contents either bagged up and disposed of ashore or incinerated in accordance with regulations and company procedures. But not before securing the bottom plates, tightening all fastenings correctly, and removing all tools, security tapes, and warning signs. And don't forget, you may think you're doing all the right things, and you probably are, but it's still all too easy to allow bad practice to creep in. Just watch out for the obvious. Don't leave oil spills lying around. Make sure floor plates are secure. Watch out for trip hazards. Sort out that leaking pipe. You know it makes sense. Engine rooms are a mass of pipes, some cold, but most of them hot, sometimes very hot and often under pressure. So it's very important that warning notices are in place to avoid burns, and that all valves and joints are secure and regularly checked for leaks and corrosion. Pipes are also an important part of good housekeeping. They should be regularly checked for damaged lagging, particularly lagging that may have become damaged or oil-soaked. This must be immediately reported, the cause identified and remedied, and the lagging replaced. Warning notices should always be kept clean. It's important that relevant colour coding is preserved, and if fading or discolouring, report for repainting. While finally, waste oil should never be allowed to accumulate, particularly in those many awkward spots, which is far easier to overlook. The engine room has many different lubricants and chemicals in use, so care needs to be taken when cleaning. Some cleaning tasks require the use of powerful chemicals. When using such substances, the hazmat and control of substances hazardous to health, COSH properties of these materials should be clearly understood and the correct cleaning procedures followed. A priority of good housekeeping is keeping the ventilation systems working at 100% efficiency. This means that filters, dampers and fans are clear and unobstructed. Engine room equipment requires a plentiful supply of oxygen, and if you're working with chemicals and solvents, you must ensure that fumes are drawn off and clean air is circulating freely. Modern ships are a maze of electrical circuitry, operating lighting, pumps, sensors and alarms, telecommunications and computerized control systems. Therefore, one of the most important people on board is the electrical officer. At any time, the electrician may be called on to fix anything from a faulty light fitting to a pump control, and on most ships there's only one of him. It's a full-time job patrolling every part of the ship, checking reports of faults or making his own inspections. All electrical devices and power sources need regular monitoring, frayed cables, fuse boxes, making sure no water is getting into vulnerable areas causing short circuits or even fire. And when you find a faulty piece of equipment, never make a makeshift repair. Always report the problem and make sure that a proper repair is carried out to a safe and acceptable standard. Remember that most power on board ship is 110 volts, and you're surrounded by metal without much insulation. Don't take chances. Also, when working with extension cables, don't create trip hazards. And remember that drums will heat up if power is used whilst the cable is left coiled, so extend the cable fully before use. A lot of heavy equipment is used continually in the engine room areas and workshops. Good housekeeping ensures that all heavy objects are secured when not in use. It's not enough to leave it in the storeroom and forget about it. If it moves around, it will certainly become damaged and may not be fit for use when you really need it. Also, when working with welding equipment, remember to ensure that all connections are closed off when not in use. A major item of stores in the engine room are drums containing lubricants and chemicals. These must always be very well secured and checked for leaks. It's also important to monitor any spillages when extracting the contents, cleaning up and disposing of any waste in the correct manner. The engine room also has a role to play in keeping the ship clean. Quite a lot of waste is generated aboard ship, and after the various materials have been segregated into categories, food waste, rags, paper, bottles and cans, some waste can be disposed of through incineration. The ship is dependent on the engine room, and good housekeeping ensures that it works at the highest level of efficiency. So, some key points to remember. Ensure effective PPE. Keep all tools in good condition. Maintain well-organized workshops. Always maintain safety equipment to high standards. Keep checking ventilation systems. Check for leaks or spillages. Use correct disposal of waste. Secure all heavy equipment. Ensure good maintenance and permit no makeshift repairs. Be proud of your work. A clean, well-managed engine room is a safe and efficient unit. It has to be. The ship relies on it. The end of another voyage. But for the engine room, the job of staying ship-shape never stops. There's much to do. Cleaning filters, changing gaskets, service the oily water separator, replace that damaged lagging.